Hey everybody, my name is Steve Moore. I'm the owner of Run More, this brick and mortar running shop behind me located in Westminster, Maryland. I had a couple people ask me for a specific shoe review, so I'm really happy to do that. It is the new Newton family. Actually, we're going to talk about the Fate and the Kismet. We're doing both reviews today. They both just came out. Newton is a cool brand that we've been carrying at the shop since we opened in 2014. There's a lot of brands that when people are in, like somebody comes in and says, I've been running in a Brooks Ghost and I like it, but I'm happy to try some other stuff that you may be suggesting or some stuff that lines up well with my foot scan and blah, blah, blah. When people are in a Newton, you cannot get them out of a Newton. It is the most ardent group of fans and people don't mess with it. If they're in a Fate, they want the Fate. If they're in a Kismet, they want the Kismet. It's great, and so people when the new ones come out are really excited to hear about it because that is going to be their shoe. You know, unless they're really hunting for old stuff, they will be in that new model no matter what. So hopefully it's a good model for them. And I'm happy to say I think these are both great updates. And since we've been carrying them for so long, it's kind of fun to see how they've been evolving. So just a quick little bit about Newton because a lot of people might not know much about them. It's a small company out in Boulder, Colorado. Little fun fact. Their logo is supposed to be the University of Colorado, the Running Buffaloes. So that's how they got that end looking like that. So their big claim to fame is, if you can kind of see here, are these little lugs that sit over your toes. They're full of compressed air. And each model has a different amount of pop is the term that they use. And it also dictates by how much height in the heel that the shoe has is how luggy and poppy the shoe is. So their most popular lines are the Gravity and the Motion. It is their big $175, really poppy, really low drop, everyday shoe. This is actually my old Gravities. So I had these about 2 years ago and I ran, not only did I run almost every day in them, I raced in these. So I did a bunch of races. We were part of a summer series down here and I raced every other week in this shoe, and then I ran up to a half marathon in this shoe, and I really liked this shoe, and I had been in a bunch of Newton stuff, so this was a really fun shoe. But at the store, ironically, we carry the Fate and the Kismet and not the Gravity and the Motion, which is we're probably one of the only stores that do that, and I'll explain why in just a minute here. But so Newton's very fun, very poppy, relatively light. On the men's side, these guys are 8.8 ounces, and on the female side, they're 7.2 ounces. So they're relatively light. They're meant for like an everyday trainer. Specifically, these models, the Fate and the Kismet, are meant to be an everyday trainer. We have tons of people that use this for a race shoe as well. We've got a lot of customers that might use a Brooks Ghost or a whatever for their everydays and then use this for a race shoe. Because these little compressed air pockets that are centering underneath your toe, they're fun, they're bouncy, they spring you. The idea being is to kind of propel you forward. You know, this was like one of the first iterations of a shoe that, you know, we sometimes call like a cheater shoe, and that you're getting an advantage because the shoe is literally sort of springing you forward. These compressed air pockets would condense and extract as you were running, and specifically if you can get up on your toes and really take advantage of it. Out here in Carroll County, where our shop is, it's very hilly. So when I would tell people that wanted to try these shoes out, is really think about using these lugs to your advantage. If you're running one of the billions of hills out here, and you can think about getting up on your toes and trying to propel yourself forward and just using the shoe as it's intended for your, you know, to use it as your advantage, it really is a phenomenal, fun, fast, exciting shoe that's different from anything else out there. So some people will use this as every day, but some people will just use this as a race day shoe. There's two different versions that we're talking about that came out side by side. And just like we talked about with the Gravity and Motion, the Fate and the Kismet are sort of hand in hand. So the Fate is your neutral option and the Kismet is your stable option. So if you're sort of looking at the side by side, you can see that fun, funky pattern there. This whole piece here that's got this fun, funky pattern and these little dots here, kind of hard to see in the camera, but on here when you look in close to them, those are little stability pods, and this piece that's darker here, that's fun, funky pattern, is just a little bit more density to it. So if you're somebody who overpronates, you would look for something like the Kismet. That would give you a little bit more balance and help you from overpronating. If you're somebody who doesn't need that, you would just go to the Fate. And again, it doesn't have those same, I guess you can kind of see it now side by side. So we don't have those same stability pods along the medial side here, and we don't have that fun, funky pattern on the inside. So that being, because it doesn't have that same density, this is a little bit softer, and this is a little bit stiffer. So they go side by side, hand in hand. If you're somebody's neutral, somebody's stable, you have a Newton in your classification. And on the women's side, same thing. Here is our women's Fate versus our women's Kismet. So you see fun, funky pattern, stability pods on the Kismet, not on the Fate. So going back to us being one of the few stores that does the Fate and the Kismet, not the Gravity and the Motion. When we first opened, we were carrying all four of those lines. But The price point on the Gravity and the Motion, it's $175. It's fine. It's just an expensive shoe. And a lot of people that are coming into, we live in a small rural community out here in Carroll County. That's a pretty big price point to drop on a shoe, especially if you're those people that like, that is their race day shoe, that is their anything from literally a mile to a marathon, they are in their Newtons. That's a lot of good amount of price to swallow there. So the Fate and the Kismet coming in at $140, it's a much more manageable price drop, or a price point for them. And really, there's not tons and tons of differences between the Motion and the Kismet versus the Fate and the Gravity. So just a couple little things so you can try to decide for yourself if which one is right for you. Is if you're looking at the Fate and the Kismet, your heel to toe drop on both those guys is 4 millimeters. So we're just going boop, boop, 4 millimeters. Where you're looking at the Gravity, it's 3 millimeters. So nothing crazy. We're talking about a millimeter less of difference. The pops are a little bit less in this one. So if you're looking at your old, I don't even know why I'm holding this guy up. It's so beat up. If you're looking at your old Gravities versus your Fates, you're going to have a little bit more pop in your Gravities. So a little bit less stack height. The weight is almost identical. You're looking on the men's, you're talking about 8.8 ounces on the Fate versus 8.7 on the Gravity. So it's not like it's a drastic difference in weight. And quite honestly, when we're talking about the heel to toe drop, if you're looking at a Newton in resting motion, while you can see there is an offset, but when it's sitting on the ground with those lugs sticking out, sometimes we call it negative drop, is that the shoe almost sits like this because the lugs are high and the heel is still low, so you almost feel like it's going backwards on it. So I don't feel there's not tons of difference besides there's a big price point, and because this one has even just that one little millimeter, it tends to feel a little bit more cushioned. Inside the shoe is what they're called Newtonium. So I'm going to try to get in there. If you can kind of see all these little tiny balls and such inside there, that runs all the way through the midsole of their shoes. It's almost like their own, for lack of a better way to categorize it, they're Adidas Boost. So it compresses and bounces with you as you're running. So that's one nice thing from the older versions to the new versions on the Fate and Kismet, is you can feel that Newtonium throughout the shoe. When I put it on compared to an old Fate that I had and walked around, you can actually feel the difference. It's definitely softer. It feels more padded on the heel. It just feels like that nice blend of cushion and responsiveness that you would want in the midsole, and then you still have that really great poppy sensation to spring you forward. So it's the nice and the best of both worlds. The weight hasn't changed much between the last generations. The fit feels better. It's a little bit softer. The heel cup feels better. Last version on the Fate, it was one of those few shoes where I almost had to size down a half. Most of the time, because I have a little bit wider of a foot, I end up going up a half. But I'm 11 and a half in most shoes, sometimes a 12 depending on the cut of the shoe. I was pretty much happy in 11 and a half, but I very well could have been even happier in an 11 in my opinion. So this actually fit much more true to size to me. I'm an 11 and a half in this, and I feel great in an 11 and a half in this. So fits a little bit better, still has that great pop sensation. It's nice and cushy. It's a great shoe, especially if somebody who's been on the fence about trying out a Newton. Being able to get a shoe like this that's different, unique, and get it for $140, it's a great value. And one thing about the Newtons, because a lot of it is it's sort of this, it's a thick, durable rubber, especially through the lugs here. The durability on it's great. My one training buddy got over 1,000 miles in it. Again, he's also done that in a pair of Escalantes because he's just a crazy person. But they looked and felt great. Of course, I've had people that have come in and said, they had a lug that separated or something punctured in it. It's very far and few between that we hear those kind of those little things that defect on it. Most of the time, when people come in and get a Fate or Kismet, I don't see them again until the next one comes out, and they've put a ton of miles on it, and they've been very happy and content with it. As long as, in my opinion, they're not like a punctured lug. And sometimes after you've run through these a long time and the rubber's gone, you're more susceptible if you step on something to puncture it. But you've really had to have done some damage on it. Like going back to my Gravities, like these guys are really beat up, and if you look in there, there's no tread left on it, but it still feels just as poppy to me. Like I still can feel like I can go out there and turn some miles in it and feel great and feel really efficient in it. So really fun. Glad to have the new versions out there. One other thing that I like as a retailer here is they only make one color of each model, so I'm not hunting down 50 different colors for people. So this is your men's Fate, and this is your female Fate. And if you've been with Newton for a while, they've sort of had these color schemes in one way or another before. So 2 years ago, they had sort of a red devil-y Fate on the men's, and they've had this nice purple on the female. And then on the Kismet, we've got this sort of Miami Dolphins kind of look to it, and we've got the bright green guy on the men's side. So those are your only other color options. These are going to be around for about a year. And if you've been looking to try something else, or if you've been in the Gravity and just want to see something else that might be just something different to try but still has the same idea, pick up a Fate, pick up a Kismet. I will say just one thing that people have found with Newtons, and it's a bit of, It's not a big deal for me. There are other brands that have a similar or have their own lug system. There's a brand out there that's kind of popular that has one big channel going down the middle and a couple of these little horizontal lugs going this way. Is sometimes you can get some stuff stuck in the middle. So if I am going to go out for a run that's like that's got a lot of gravel on it or unpaved stuff, I probably won't pull this because you can get some stuff stuck in there. But otherwise, if it's just a little bit of gravel stuff, like I ran a half marathon in those gravities 2 years ago and had a great race experience. And part of it was on a sidewalk and part of it was on a little bit of a gravel. I had no issues with it. But if I was going like a trail or if I was looking for a shoe to do some on-road, off-road, I probably wouldn't suggest the Newton just because you can get some stuff stuck in there. It does tend to just bounce back. But if you have a step and you can feel a rock in there and a couple other steps, it will pop out. But really great, fun shoe, something different. Out of Boulder, Colorado, really happy with them. You can get them on our website for $140. Use promo code RUNMORE. It'll knock 10% off and we'll ship it out for free. Any Newton related questions? I'm seriously a really big fan of this brand, so I'm happy to answer them down below. Thanks as always and stay safe.